Okay, so moving on to the next piece, we're going to set up our remote development environment, which is arguably the biggest cornerstone piece of this whole stack that enables us to get all of our coding work done. So we're going to use a platform called Coder. It lets you spin up remote development workspaces. If you never used it before, I think there's something like it in GitHub, like code spaces, something like that. Anyways, it lets us spin up remote development environments and keep all of our work encapsulated there, and we could run, whatever different utilities that we want off of that. So I'll go through the installation and some of the basic fundamental usages of it, and then maybe I'll do a follow-up video with more of a deep dive on how I set up my development environments. But so what we'll do is we'll make our compose file first, I think, and get that done, and then we'll go and do some of the actual setup work. So again, we're here in our directory structure. So I'm going to go to my compose file. We're going to add, oops, there we go. We're going to add all of our configurations for Coder. It seems like a lot, but I'll go through it again line by line. There we go. And where was I? There we go. So this is what I was talking about before. There we go. I use profiles for all the other services. That way I can toggle them on or off individually. You could do like individual ones. You could set up something like a core installation, a medium installation, and a full installation, whatever you want. I have here a profile that I'm going to give it individually if I want to toggle this one on by itself. Again, Git will always launch because it's one of my most core components. And then I have a profile called full, which will just launch the entire uh, environment. Here, I'm doing this coder image. Again, you could pin this if you want to. It's going to kind of annoy you when it does version updates. So maybe you want to keep latest. That way you can make it easy. But it's up to you. Hostname coder, we're going to attach it to our dev environment network. Here, we're going to uh, mount this coder directory to our coder config directory inside the container. I honestly forget why I mounted the Docker socket. Oh, I know why. Duh. So what's going to happen is Coder is going to launch each of your workspaces in their own encapsulated environments with Docker containers. So Coder itself needs access to the Docker daemon in order to do so. Now you could do something like Docker and Docker if you want to. There's a lot of ways you can go around this. What I'm doing is I'm just bind mounting my Docker socket on my host to the Docker socket inside of the coder container. That way, when I go to launch a workspace, it will essentially instruct my host to launch my sandbox development environment. I'm going to expose port 3000. That's what I'm going to access coder on. Group add 998. That's my Docker group. You can get that if you go onto your host and you find out. I guess I can do that real quick. It's not Docker. It's Docker D. I forget really. Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking. So I'm just gonna find with a group ID for Docker that just lets my coder installation control the Docker daemon correctly. That's all. So back to where we were. Let's see. We're going to pass in a ton of environment variables. So the access URL that we're going to do it by, we're going to access on coder port 3000. It's going to bind to all addresses. I'm not going to use wildcard URLs. I've done it in the past. It makes life kind of easy so that you don't have to do port forwarding from your host. But I hate having to run a custom DNS resolver on my Windows machine. So it's in here if you ever want to do it. You don't have to. So moving on, all of my OpenID Connect variables. So ignore email verified. I don't want to have to do it with email verification. Email domains that are accepted, example.com, Gmail, something like that. The issuer URL is going to be get8000. I will add these variables to my environment file here in a little bit, but this is my client ID and my client secret, which we'll create later on. For get auth, this is just instructing it how to do the authentication. So even though it says type GitHub, it's because they don't have a dedicated GitT type, but then we're giving it the ID GitT, the get auth regex for GT8000. This is the auth URLs. These are pain in the butt to kind of track down, I guess. So the auth URL, the token, and the validation URL, these all work. So you can use these. And finally, get auth, client ID, and client secret. This helps it tap into your OpenID Connect setup, and get auth is what it's going to use for authenticating to your repositories and so on and so forth for like automatic cloning and things like that. So you don't have to log into your repositories every single time. Same thing, restart unless stopped, and this depends upon GitT being up and our custom health check being healthy. So our health check right there. That's all we really need to do with this one. Before I launch it, though, I'm going to go ahead and set up those that OpenID Connect. First thing I really kind of want to do, I want to copy these to my environment file here. We're obviously not going to leave any of that there. There we go. And I'll come back and fill that in here in a little bit. But now I've got them in there at least for Coder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop over here to GitT that we've already set up. And here we go. So here's how we're going to do this. Each one of our core services is going to have a GitT user, which is going to have its own application with its client ID and secret and callback URLs and everything like that. You could run everything off of one. I like to keep everything separated. So what we'll do, we'll go to site administration, identity and access, and user accounts. And you'll get real good at doing this. We're going to do this several times. So I'm going to create one for Coder, and we'll just call it Coder at example.com. Whatever you want to do. Give it a password. I'm not going to require a password change. I'm just going to create it. So from here, what I'll do, I'll sign out of my user, sign back in as Coder. You can certainly just launch an incognito window, and that would be fine because this is only a temporary login. So here I am in as my Coder user. You can see that. I'm going to go to Settings. We're going to go down to Applications. And not a token. We're going to create an OAuth 2 application. So we're going to call this application just Coder, and we're going to give it some redirect URLs. These are the ones that are allowed. If you don't put them in here, when, say, Coder tries to contact GitT for an authentication and it makes a successful authentication, what's going to happen is it's going to do a redirect back to Coder. If you don't have these things implicitly allowed, there, you can see my face. If you don't have these URLs allowed, it's going to throw an error. So that's what we're going to do here. So you got Coder 3000, API v2 users OIDC callback, and the same thing for external auth GitT callback. So with these set up here, I'm going to create the application. I need to note this client ID and client secret. So let's copy this. This goes into the ID. And there's our secret right there. And that's all the setup we really need to do. So we're done in here. I can sign out. And here's the important thing is when you're signed in with your main user, all of the SSO will actually work. So as long as I'm signed into Git with my dqueen user, I'll be automatically signed into Coder with that same user. So what we'll do is we'll come in here. I'm going to just give that a quick sanity check. Everything looks fine here. So what I'm going to do to launch this, we're going to say DCO or Docker Compose profile coder up and -d because I don't want it running the foreground. That runs it as a daemon. And it's launched. And I can say DCO logs -f coder, and I can see, okay, it's up and listening. So you can see here, coder will not check email verified for OIDC logins, which is what we want. So from here, we're just going to go to coder port 3000. And if we did everything right, there we go. It's up and running. This first thing is the admin account. I'm not going to add myself as the first one because I want OIDC login. So I'm going to say admin at example.com and give it a password. That's right, it does not like these. There we go. And here we are. We're in workspaces. I'm not going to do the tour just yet because what I'm going to do is go to, oh, they've moved settings around, I guess. Deployment. And I'm going to go to my users here. And you see it's just me in here. I'm going to make my other one an owner. But now that I've created the admin user, I'm going to sign out and I'll sign back in with OpenID Connect. Since I'm already logged into Git as my user dqueen, all I have to do is click OpenID Connect. It's going to ask me to authorize Coder to access my account. I'm going to say yes, authorize the application. And what it should do is redirect, and here I am, back in as myself. Now, real quick, I want to sign back in as admin. Just so that I can go to my deployment users, and I'm going to make myself owner. At that point, I really shouldn't have to go back in as admin. I can just click OpenID Connect, and there we have it. I'm in as myself, workspaces. I don't know how far we are in on this video. I'm in 13 minutes or so. I think we'll call this one done, and in the next one, I'll go through a basic configuration of Coder. Okay, see you in the next one.